Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the BJJ Foxcast. I am your host, Alex Martinez, and today we have a special guest, Greg Mclarty. Greg is a physical therapist over at Control Physical Therapy in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he is a brown belt under the great and powerful Gustavo Dantes and Issa Abel. Greg, welcome to the show, man.
True. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man.
I love the show, man.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So you're the guy listening. That's cool.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and, how you got to Arizona and, just whatever comes to mind.
So I actually moved here when I was 6 with my family. So
Okay.
I grew up out here. So
Nice.
I've pretty much been here ever since.
And where were you born? Were you born at
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri? Right on. Okay. So how did you and I have had conversations in the past? I mean, it's been several years since we've actually sat down across from each other. We're having a beer once.
Yeah.
And you talked about your journey through physical therapy and how you got there. Can you kind of elaborate on that? How you decided, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah. So I was working in management at a car rental company,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of I started getting frustrated with the fact that I felt like I was selling people stuff they didn't need.
Yeah.
And, you kind of put people in these really bad positions. So I think I was voicing that a lot and not realizing it.
Yeah.
And actually Gustavo at the time he just looked at me one day and he goes, I don't think you like your job. Why don't you do something else? And I was like, I'm 24. I can't do anything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ended up just kind of starting to analyze where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And just saw the resemblance between jiu-jitsu and physical therapy, and even just some of the way you analyze movement and everything like that. I kind of think of as a black belt in jiu-jitsu as an expert in movement.
Yep.
And then I see on the flip side of that coin, a physical therapist is the same thing.
Yeah.
But so I ended up actually quitting my job like a month after I decided that I wanted to be a physical therapist.
Yeah.
And then I started the path, man.
That's cool.
Took forever, but
Yeah. Yeah. How long is the school to get your certification?
so you have to do your 4-year degree, and then you have to go for a doctorate.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it's
So you're Dr. Greg.
yeah. Kinda,
I'm calling you Dr. Greg from now on.
Yeah, I always tell people I have my doctorate. I'm not a doctor because I think it sounds like kind of weird. But there's arguments in the physical therapy field with that stuff. So,
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that was, that's funny how, first of all, when you're 24 years old and you think you got to have your stuff together.
Right.
Right? Isn't that
Absolutely.
scary? And you're like, I
It's
can't do this.
crazy.
This is my job. I have,
It's crazy. I think even at 40, if you're not happy doing what you are doing, then you got to find something that makes you happy. You got to still do that stuff for 25 more years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I give that advice all the time, man. Don't get good at a job you don't like.
That's
right.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the path you were on, right? You were pretty good at the job. You didn't like it, but it paid the bills.
Yeah. I was working with a bunch of people who had to have college degrees. I kind of got through in a back door and just kind of, I advanced a lot because I was good at sales, but it just, I didn't have any passion for it. So,
I kind of did the same thing when I was getting out of the military. When you're getting out of the military, they you put in, like, I don't know if you put in your documents. I can't remember how it did, but you just tell them you're not going to re-enlist. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And they put you through this program. It's like 2 weeks long, and they basically teach you like how to interview, how to dress for interviews, and what to say, what not to say. They put you in touch with headhunters and all this stuff. Dude, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was 27 years old. I had 2 kids, a mortgage, and a minivan. I had no clue how I was going to pay the bills. I knew I was getting out, right? But we were sitting in this group with like 8 people, and these guys are talking about all these jobs they have in line, and I'm like, oh, God, that sounds pretty cool, right? So one guy said, well, I'm going to be a service technician. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, you just kind of drive around, and, the people tell you where to go, and you fix stuff, and then you just kind of go home, and you'll have your own truck, and you just take the truck home, and you got tools and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I can do that, right? And it just kind of manifested, right? I had no leads. I had no idea how, but I ended up being a service technician. And then I stayed with that company. I was in project management that I hated. I was really bad at it. So project management is like, it's an animal. Like, it's tough. So, and then I got into sales, and you just kind of, next thing you know, I'm 40 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they're like, holy crap. And you know what I mean? So
crazy. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's probably 90% of people's stories is
Yeah.
just kind of like, I do this because I have to do it.
Right.
And I'm glad that Gustavo had that conversation with me, because there was actually a point where I'm like, I got to go to school for like 9 years, because I was 28 at the time, and I didn't really have any college. I had 3 credits.
Yep.
So I was like, I'm going to have to do this for 9 years. I was like, I'm going to be 30 whatever by the time I get out. Math is hard.
We don't math very well.
but yeah, so like I just remember having a conversation with him again, and he's like, yeah, but you could be at the same place in 9 years going, man, I should have started school 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Or you could be a physical therapist.
Wow.
So and I was like, that's true. So,
yeah. And it's crazy how, like, you know, someone at that, with his life experience, being a mentor to you and leading you down that path, and how happy are you now that you've been through all of the hard part and now you're actually doing the work and helping people?
I actually have chills right now because I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. It's crazy. Like, just to be like the other day I had a guy tell me, so he's a blue belt now, but he was like, I don't think I'd be doing jiu-jitsu still if it wasn't for you. So
wow.
It's like, it really just, it makes everything fulfilling. So so I'm stoked every day to go to work. So
that's great, man. And so tell me about the structure, because I always wondered about physical therapy. You walk into a building, it's obviously loaded down with equipment, and you have, I'm assuming there's an owner, and then there's the physical therapist. Do you work for the ownership group, or are you an independent contractor? You work for yourself? Do you own the place, or
So yeah, I actually own Control Physical Therapy.
Nice. Okay.
So
okay.
I'm the only physical therapist there.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's really small. Like my mom works for me. She does like a couple days a week,
Awesome.
maybe 1 to 2.
Yeah.
If she wants to.
Yeah. What does she do? What does she do for you?
Just some front office stuff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and then actually there's a blue belt right now that is helping me out. She'll be done in about 2 weeks. So, but she's gotta go back to school. She wants to be a physical therapist. So I do some mentorship type stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about it.
That's cool. That's cool. So, how often does that happen where somebody just kind of calls you up and says, hey, I'm looking to get into the business, and what's the kind of process you put them through, like, to make sure you get good people through the door to help?
So typically I knew her already. Well, I knew her dad. So,
okay.
So, I that one was easy.
Yep.
So I just said, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But you're really looking for somebody that's serious about it. So what I would have them do first is just come shadow me. So it wouldn't really be a job at that point. I would just be like, hey, come watch me do some stuff. See if this is even something you're interested in. And it gets a little more iffy now because I am doing so much jiu-jitsu specific stuff. Like it has to be the right person.
Yeah.
So if they're not interested in that sport aspect of it, then it has to, like, it just won't work out. So,
And I think, you know, looking from the outside in, it would seem like, oh, you're dealing mostly with jiu-jitsu stuff, just like you said. And, you know, it may seem like you're almost finding your, I hate to call it pigeonhole, right? But it seems like it's such a small pocket, right, of people. But honestly, I think it's a good thing because you're answering a specific question. How do I get back on the mat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that could apply to a lot of different things.
And to be honest with you, I'm not pigeonholed
Good.
either.
Yeah.
I'm right now, I'm probably 50-50. It gets up to like 75-25 with the jiu-jitsu stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually like doing everything. So I like working with the 85-year-old that can barely walk.
Beautiful.
Because it's just really fulfilling to see them in 3 months. You know, doing stuff that they didn't think they were ever going to do again. So okay, so this is going to be like a stupid question, but what's like a specific jiu-jitsu injury that you see time and time again where you're sitting there like it's so easy to avoid, it doesn't make any sense that you're injured? Oh man, so I think the things that I could see people avoiding a little bit more would be shoulder, because just the way we work shoulders outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
We do a lot of the big, lifting movements, and we need to be stable in the shoulders with jiu-jitsu. Yeah. There's a lot of like isometric pushing and stuff like that. Yep. And we translate that to like, I'm going to do an overhead press.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that stuff could be avoided more. In all reality, are you going to 100% avoid all your injuries?
No.
Probably not. But
No.
what you're trying to do is you're trying to strengthen and stabilize to mitigate risk, and then make it so that it's not as serious if you do get something. So instead of taking 7 months off for a surgery, you're taking, 1 month or 1 week or 1 day off just to feel a little bit better, and then move on with your life.
So. And that's one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because if someone hurts their shoulder and they go see their doctor, and the doctor is a surgeon, he's going to want to cut them open, right? I mean, that's surgeons want to do surgery, right?
A lot of them will, but I would say if you find one that tells you to go and do something else, then that's somebody you keep forever.
That's a good doctor,
right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of those out there. But, but
I was
there's a
fortunate.
lot that wanna cut you up.
I was fortunate. I saw a guy named Dr. Zeman, Dave Zeman. He's out of Phoenix, and when I tore my LCL, had the MRI, and I love the way he does it, because he doesn't like bring you in and read a chart. He leaves you a message, like
nice.
literally. Yeah, you have a code, and you call in, and he just speaking into a recorder or something, right?
That's awesome.
And he's like, he told me, he's like, it's a partial tear. It will heal on its own. You need physical therapy. That's
nice.
it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
right?
It's great.
So when I actually did tear something, it was a meniscus tear, and I had a little damage. I went back to him. Right.
That's 100%.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would stick with him forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how they make their money.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's telling you, I don't want to take your money, then you got to stick with that person. That's awesome.
I wonder if he was thinking, this moron's going to hurt the knee anyway. He'll be back.
I mean,
right.
You might just do that with every jiu-jitsu person. He's like, I'll get this guy for like 5 more surgeries.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu, man. How did you get into jiu-jitsu?
Ooh, that's a long story.
Is it? Let's hit it, man. That's what we're here for.
So I actually went in the Coast Guard when I was 23, I believe. And I had some issues. I was actually very weak, probably. And, just even looking back now, I had a bad core, and I was having some medical issues, and they actually discharged me to come back home and strengthen my core.
Wow.
And I had talked to a guy that I had worked with when I was 21 about training jiu-jitsu, and I was like, I don't like that stuff, whatever. I don't want to do karate kicks and all that stuff. So same thing everybody thinks. But, and he ended up showing me some UFC videos, and he's like, that's jiu-jitsu. And it just always stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And I always told myself I couldn't afford it. And and then after I got out of the Coast Guard, I was like going to the bar a lot. And one day I just looked down at my receipt, and I had spent like $65 at the bar. And I was like, I can do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I actually called probably the next day, and I thought I was calling, I don't know if you remember Rage in the Cage Center.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought I was calling there because I was the only one that I knew of.
Yep.
And I accidentally called Arizona Combat Sports.
Yep.
And ended up meeting Gustavo the next day. So,
yeah, he was the instructor there for their jiu-jitsu program, or he had his jiu-jitsu program running out of there for a while, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I'd say you were correct with the first statement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was basically running their program.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So,
yeah. So tell me about that. Gustavo Dantes at the time was probably pretty competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So the place was pretty like amped up, and it was really competitive stuff.
It went through phases, actually. Okay. So it's actually so now it's a little more similar to what I started with. Mm-hmm. He never really, at the beginning, he wasn't really pushing competition. I don't even remember him asking me to compete.
Right.
That might have been on me, but I might have been a little lazy, but then it really ramped up from there. I think maybe once he started building like a really big stable of people, that he kind of got more aggressive towards competing. Sure. And then it kind of it went back the other way, I think. So
were you around when he started the competition circuit, the AZ BJJ what it's become now, or was that before your time, or was that right around the same time?
It was. Yeah, I think that started really close after.
Okay.
So he was running tournaments already,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he was just doing them under his own thing.
Yeah.
So, and then I think he worked with Megaton at the time to kind of form it.
Yep.
I think it was the AZ BJJF at the time.
Yep.
And then they transitioned to AZ BJJL.
Pretty recently.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Yeah. Definitely.
I always credit Gustavo and Megaton. I mean, they come from a tropical paradise.
Yeah.
Right? And they come to this desert and be like, yep, this is going to work out.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know how that works. But I credit him with doing more for jiu-jitsu in Arizona, for doing jiu-jitsu, more for jiu-jitsu in Arizona than anyone else I can think of.
I would absolutely agree. Actually, when I started training there, you could train at those two or you could train at Rough House.
Yeah.
And that's where you would get your legit training.
Yeah.
Now it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Rough House was actually just a couple miles from here.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It was on that's where I took my very first jiu-jitsu class.
Okay.
So I just Googled jiu-jitsu in Mesa and I'm like, oh, mile and a half away. Perfect. Right. I drove out there and Gerson was a brown belt at the time and he was teaching class there. Arthur had moved, I think, to like Ohio or something like that. So it was just like he had some people running the place for him. Okay. And yeah, I went there and then I went to Paul's. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with Paul's like right away. But then the next stop was going to be GD, right? Mm. But I found out that Paul was a black belt under GD. I'm like, it's got to be about the same thing. So I ended up staying at Paul's. I never went and tried a class at GD.
It's crazy how you do think that. You're like, it's so wild knowing how different styles are there, right?
Very different.
It's crazy. Yeah. But you still get good training.
100%. Yeah. And one thing they had in common is when I joined Paul's, he was like super competitive and it was pretty wild because we only had like blue belt and below, right? If there was a purple belt in the room, they were visiting, you know what I mean? From GD.
Right.
So, but the one thing they had in common is their competition training. It was so intense. And I remember Paul said, hey, we're going to go to GD next week for competition training. Don't be late. And I didn't know what that meant. It meant that Gustavo locked the door.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and didn't let you in.
Right.
If you were late. I was like, that is awesome. Thank God I'm early.
I think they actually did that today, too. So.
Did they really? Yeah. That's so great. Yeah. I love that. I don't know if I could get away with it in my academy, but...
not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But
yeah. So, and being under GD for a while, obviously Paul got his black belt from GD.
Yep.
I got a lot of exposure to a lot of, you guys, right?
Yeah.
And made a lot of friends. And it's really cool to see how everything has expanded. You own your own business through Control, and you're teaching over at One Love, right, with Issa.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Issa opening up his own academy, and just seeing, just knowing that, like, I was there when these guys were kids.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey through jiu-jitsu. You started over at Arizona Combat Sports, and when did you get your like blue belt and realize like, hey, maybe I'll do something with this?
So I got my blue belt after the typical 2 years.
Yeah.
I was really heavy into competing at the time. I got to 2 stripes, and then it kind of started my series of going back to school.
Yep. Yeah.
Then I actually started dealing with my own injuries, and it was just a long time of school and injuries, and I'd go back and then I'd get injured again. Yeah. I didn't know how to deal with the injuries myself.
Yep.
And then I started going back to Gustavo's. I used to work at OS.
Yep. I remember that.
Therapy.
Yep.
And I was training at Gustavo's at the time. That job didn't end up working out, so I ended up going way out west, and I just couldn't train anymore. I couldn't train at Gustavo's anymore. And back then it was, don't want to be a Karaoke.
There was a lot of that. Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm just not going to train anymore.
Yeah.
So I actually took 6 months off again, and finally my brain just was like, I can't do this anymore.
Can't not do it.
And I trained with Issa a little bit, but I didn't really know him. And I was like, I'm just going to go stop by Issa's and talk to him a little bit. And it's like, there's no way he's going to remember me.
Yeah.
Because it had been years.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and he was like, "What's up, man?"
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like,
that's typical, right?
yeah.
Typical Issa. I love the guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I found a new home.
Very cool.
So now I'm out on this side of town again, out in Gilbert, and so I'm kind of splitting time.
Good.
So, yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah. I remember one open mat when I first met Issa. I met Issa and I met Jonathan Van Buren pretty much same day at an open mat. And I rolled with them back to back. That is like the worst 10 minutes of my life. That was the worst 10 minutes. I think it was a blue belt or something.
Right.
I got destroyed, man. I remember Issa and I started standing, and I'll never forget this because I shot in, and he cross-faced me to the floor, to my back. I was like, this is going to be a long round, and it was rough.
I've felt that cross-face plenty of times, actually.
Yeah. I actually talked to them about how they started in jiu-jitsu. They came out of high school. I think they went to high school together, he and Jonathan.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they were in high school together, and then they were kind of training, like trying to figure something out after high school because they both wrestled. And they joined a Gracie Baja school. Yeah, and then Issa's like, yeah, we found Gustavo's, and that's when I think they got their blue belts to do with the Gracie Baja system, and it started with Gustavo at blue belts.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I actually think you're right.
Yeah.
I think I was actually a blue belt with I was a blue belt with everybody.
Yeah.
I remember rolling with you as blue belts.
Yeah. I think the last time we talked, you had gotten your purple belt.
That's
the last time we talked.
Oh,
It's been
crazy.
a while.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit, but when we sat down and we were having beers and stuff with me, you, Paul, and a few other people, it was a great time.
Yeah,
it was a great
awesome.
time. Yeah,
It was awesome.
yeah, man. So, so tell me more about control therapy. How did it get started? Like, how did you say this is what I want to do? I want to open up my own place because it's pretty scary, right? Opening up your own business. When did you open it up?
So I opened in 2019.
Okay.
So right before the pandemic,
Gosh,
which was scary, but but it actually kind of worked out for me because I was a small clinic, and like I still am very personalized with my treatments.
That's great.
So so I think people were trying to get away from that big box clinic where like their therapist is seeing like 5 or 6 people
at the same time.
At the same time,
Yeah.
So it just kind of grew from there. So I was probably in a room the size of this room, treating people. And so now I've moved to a bigger spot. It's about 3 times as big, but
nice.
But yeah, it's the best decision I ever made. But at the time, I had already known that I wanted to do it. So I went into it going, I'm gonna have my own physical therapy office at some point. I didn't go that route right away because I didn't think I knew everything. So, so I wanted to get under people and learn as much as I could. And still starting that process, or still going through that process.
I like that. I like that you think that way. I'm the exact opposite. I'm the type that thinks that experience takes way too long. I just do it, man. I just do it. Like, I'll give you an example, and I've shared this story before. The day that I wanted to start my own academy with my partner Chris, I was sitting in traffic and I was going to a place that I didn't want to go, and I'm sitting in a parking lot on the 60, and I'm just like, why am I doing this? Right. Like, why am I doing this? And I'm sitting there thinking, what would I do like for free? Like, if money wasn't an issue, what would I do? And I'm like, I just start laughing. I'm like, I'm already doing it. I'm coaching jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
And so I call Chris right away, and I'm like, hey, let's open up our own spot. And he's like, all right.
Nice. That's awesome.
And that's how it started.
That's crazy.
And so we went to do we got together and we're like, what are we going to call it? What are we going to do? This website, and it's like getting all the juices flowing. And then pandemic hits, right? And we're like, oh no, what do we do, right? And then we launched. During the pandemic.
That's wild.
We launched. So we're like, what do we do? Do we do an online school? Do we do this? Do we do that? And the reason I think we went forward is because Chris is a stay-at-home dad, and his wife, Deborah, lost her job because of the pandemic. She was in the hospitality industry. Boom, gone, right? So then, we sat down and I'm like, what do you guys want to do? And they're like, we're all in.
That's crazy.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great,
so that's my speed right there.
Nice.
Yeah. So that worked out really well. And they've been good for me because I am a, ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And Chris is let's process this a little bit.
Oh, that's good.
He saved me from myself so many times,
that's
dude.
Great.
Like if you were to come up to me and say, hey, I want to do a seminar at your school on this day, I'm like, done. And Chris is like, hey, we have 8 things going on that day. You know what I mean? That's Chris. That he's my calendar. So he saved me from myself a lot, dude.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's my girlfriend from me. Actually, I guess she actually tells me to pull the trigger too sometimes.
There you go. Yeah.
So even with opening,
yeah.
I'll be like, I don't know if I should do this or not.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Just shut up about it and do
Just
it.
do it. Just do it. Believe in yourself, man. What about getting people through the door? How does that work? Are you marketing at all? Do you do word of mouth mostly?
90% word of mouth.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I do a little bit of search engine optimization and stuff like that. But I've tried some of the Google ads and stuff like that, and normally I get, "Hey, is this so and so physical therapy?" I'm like, Nope. I pulled up on your ad because you typed in physical therapy.
Yeah.
But like so yeah, it's the word of mouth is king, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I like your location too. Easy
Thank
to
you.
find. Yeah. Good spot, man. Yeah. I've only been in the parking lot because Amy goes to see you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But she says great things about you.
Awesome.
I think, Tiffany and a few other people, they were like, you got to get Greg on the podcast, right? Because not only do you work on them in their as a physical therapist, you know them, like your clients.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is really cool. Like, is that something you consciously did? Like, hey, I'm going to focus on, because when you start building your clientele, it's gonna be harder and harder and harder. But it seems like you have a knack of like understanding what they need, like mentally, physically, what kind of words they need to hear. I hear a lot of good things about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. It's part of it's by design, but it's not a business design. It's just what I want to do.
Nice.
Right? So people always say, do you like your job? And I'm always like, yeah, I just hang out with people all day. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just telling people to do some stuff. And then, but yeah, I want to build those relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of the reason why I went physical therapy, because I was looking at physician's assistant and I was looking at physical therapy.
Both very hard. Both very hard.
Both very difficult to get into. But in the long run, I chose physical therapy because you get to see how people do.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just being like, here's a prescription and I'll see you again if you have another issue,
Yeah.
You never know how that person did. So I'm just kind of, I feel very grateful that I'm able to build that kind of relationship with
That's
people.
great, man. That's great. So, when people come to see you, it's usually after something pretty catastrophic, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe they had surgery, maybe they just, fell on something the wrong way. They have a bump or a bruise. But what I want to talk about is, before I have a cavity, I see a dentist, right? Before I have something catastrophic, maybe I should see a physical therapist. What can you do for people like that are super active in jiu-jitsu? I'm almost 50, right? And I got to stay on the mats or else I'll drive my wife crazy, right? What could you do? Say if I walked up to you and said, I don't really have anything wrong, but what can you do to help me stay on the mats for longevity?
Yeah, so I typically work on stability through the joints with stuff like that. So I think that's where a lot of people run into issues don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do strength training. Strength training does awesome things for people, but you also need that component of stabilizing your joints, especially with jiu-jitsu. People are cranking on your joints all day long. So that's where most of my focus is. So one of the certifications that I have, they kind of talk about how people work on their flexibility and they work on their strength, but they don't actually work on mobility. So once you build flexibility, you have to have control of those joints.
Yep.
So that's what I try and give people is, we're building your ability to raise your arm over your head, but we also want you to be able to fight something off if your arm's there, not by will.
Right. So. Which is every day of my life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So, can you build programs for people? Like if somebody walked in and said, "Hey, I can't come see you every single day, but I can come see you every couple of weeks," and maybe build a program for that 2-week period and kind of see improvements or maybe not in their mobility?
Yeah, that's typically how I work anyways.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's very rare that I have the 3 times a week kind of person.
Gotcha.
So, I'm typically looking at 1 or 2 times a week.
Yeah.
And that's early stages.
Yeah.
So I want people to have ways to control things on their own, right? So I typically by the end of a injury type of thing, I have you know, we've given you all these exercises, but I want you to have these 2 or 3 exercises in your back pocket in case you have like a sore day or something like that. So that's how I'm kind of driven that way anyways.
Yeah.
But yes, I can absolutely do that just for general. I do a lot of body movement anyways. It's kind of like, so by the end of somebody coming in with a shoulder, they're not just working their shoulder. They're doing something that's challenging their shoulder stability and their hip stability at the same time. So that's typically where I would probably focus on somebody that I'm writing a program like that for. So.
Nice. So one thing that I think about you after tournaments, because I wake up like I've been in a car accident. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And
that might be the time to come see you. You know, to get a little bit of treatment. Because I'm sore in places I never realized.
Right.
You know, I couldn't be sore. Yeah.
It's definitely a good thing to come see somebody like me for. You. There's all kinds of recovery as well.
Yeah.
So I think all those things are great. You just got to find something that works for you. But I do a lot of that stuff as well. Like, so I have Normatec, I have Red Light, I actually learned a little more about Red Light from you guys. So,
from Wadis?
Wasn't
that awesome?
Yeah,
and
it was crazy.
He said he could have gone another hour just on Red Light.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was even like sitting there listening to it going, you know, because I read all the research, you know, that I can find, you know, and I've never seen that. Let me look it up, because I'm very skeptical.
Yeah.
Like, let me look it up, and a bunch of different stuff popped up. I was like,
no
wow,
kidding.
that's crazy. Because in the back of my mind, I'm going, somebody told him that. But I just had never been down that path. And it was pretty cool to hear some of that stuff. But yeah, so I use all that stuff just to try and help people recover. So sometimes I see people for one visit just because that's all they want. They come in and they're like, you know, I feel good generally, but I just don't feel great today. So
well, I don't feel good generally. I just deny a lot of things. No, I'm serious. I just deny it.
That's very common.
Yeah,
especially in jiu-jitsu. Sometimes it's almost a culture thing, like a badge of pride type of thing.
It's
that
stupid.
We get.
You can say stupid.
I agree. I agree that it's not the smartest way to go about it, but it's been built in the culture. So I think that's something that needs to change a little bit.
100%. Yeah. And you know what I tell my competitors is, you know, if you were to ask me like 6 years ago, like how do you get better? Train every day. Just train every day, grind it out, grind. Yeah. Now I'm telling people, do less.
Right.
Do less, sleep more, recover more. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a train wreck waiting to happen, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I've always had this theory, because we all know the blue belt blues, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of that is people just start to realize my body doesn't do this.
Yep.
Which it could do that, but they just don't know any other avenue. Because the old way of saying it, and it's still pretty much like that, but is that, your body will eventually go there.
Right.
Again, it's unwillingly, and that's when injury happens.
Yeah.
So I think if people learn to prime their bodies for it a little bit more, that they'll probably do a lot better and not quit in the long run.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And there's things like, you know, Vin has taught me a lot. Wade has taught me a lot. I mean, you're teaching me a lot right now. And the one thing that Vin showed me a couple things with mobility that I had no idea. And Wadis was just when he told me, like, if you do something consistently, your body's like, okay, this is what we do. And it molds you into that person, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then whatever muscles need to fire will fire, whatever muscles don't. Right. But one thing that I notice is like you said, your body does something different, you know, pretty much. For me, it's every year. You know what I mean? I want to know what my body's doing, because you just never know. Like, I'll give you an example. Houston Open, brown belt, 2019, I think maybe. I did the division. It was just one fight. Perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Went to the Open, and there was like usually about 3 hour wait between, you know, the division and the Open. And my body was doing things that I never knew it could do. It was just, and they were not good.
Right.
You know, there was a pain like going across the center of my back. And I'm like, I could not get comfortable. And it's not like you can lay down, you know, in an arena. And I learned a valuable lesson. You can't get cold. I can't get cold, right? So I got to continuously move around, and I can't sit. So that helped, right? That was a lesson learned. But I didn't know what to do to keep myself warm without being exhausted. Cause I'm just like, I'll just run, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So what are things that you could tell people, like, you know, like you have division, open, long weight, what can they do in between to kind of keep their body moving and keep that, you know, keep from getting stiff?
So to be honest with you, it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
It's just light movement.
Light movement.
This is what I commonly work with people on, you know, so people say I wake up in the morning, I'm stiff because I've been in one position. They don't even realize that, to be honest with you. They're just like, I'm just stiff in the morning, so I don't know what to do. They tell you what they need. They're like, and then I get up and I walk around and then I feel better. How do I fix that? I'm like, well, just move your legs back and forth a little bit in the morning. So that's really like for you. I would have just had you. I know you said you couldn't lay down, but you could have gotten like in a chair and just kind of like shimmied back and forth.
Okay.
And done like, there's things called pelvic tilting. So you just kind of move lightly back and forth. And typically that kind of gets rid of stiffness and soreness and things like that.
Yeah.
That's my, I'll give everybody my trick right now. People come in the first day and they're like amazed because I get their pain to go down, and it's really all I did was have them move a little bit. Yeah. And
maybe ways they never have, right?
Typically it's something that's very simple to where it's like they're just going, I didn't do this. This is so stupid. Like, you know, but it's not. You just don't realize that, like, a lot of times stiffness and soreness, like, your joints just want to be moved a little bit. So if you're just stiff and sore, just light movement typically helps it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that thing with the hips, you're gonna have to show me, because that's where the stiffness comes in, like bad.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Two super easy exercises.
Yeah. So what about between matches? Like, you got 10, 15 minutes. You might be like, you know, obviously your grips are shot, right? Your hands don't feel great. What do you do to like get the blood flowing through the forearms and stuff like that? What would you recommend?
So one thing that I would say is if you could have somebody kind of try and move some fluid out.
Okay. Just to like massage back and forth?
Yeah, so you could look up something like a retrograde massage. Okay. It's really easy to do. I'll teach people how to do it and stuff like that. Because basically you just kind of move in the fluid out, and then you move with the other hand. Move the fluid out, move with the other hand. So you're kind of trying to trap it so that it doesn't come back down. But it's kind of like you're doing your own compression sleeve.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about the compression sleeves, because I bought the Normatec thing.
Yeah.
And I use it, and I feel good after, but I don't know why.
Right.
What is that thing doing?
So typically you're moving stuff like lactic acid out of the legs. So I don't personally use it for that for myself. Okay. I just don't feel any different.
Gotcha.
I actually use it more for swelling, and so if somebody has like a surgery. Yep. So like there's so much research out there on doing compression after surgery that obviously you have to be aware of like open wounds and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, I use it to just get the swelling out.
Nice.
So sometimes I'll use it for other people so people will come in and say, hey, I'm just sore because I worked out. Yeah. Like they might be seeing me for something else. Right. So I'm not like, and that's not what you're seeing me for. I'm just like, I'll have you do some exercises while you have a Normatec on or something like that. And, most people love it. I just personally don't use it for myself. So.
Right on. So let's talk about your red light therapy. You said you learned a lot from Waitus. Yeah. But before you heard that podcast, what were you using it for? How were you using that prior to that?
Typically for like inflammation type of issues. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of research that it can help bring down inflammation. I typically have people do little exercises. So I have one guy right now that has some hand issues, and I just have him do some really light exercises underneath the red light while he's doing that, because in all reality, insurance doesn't pay for red light. So I'll have him like sit there and do his exercises, and it's just kind of like I just try and give people a little bit of a bonus while they're doing something else. That's great. But red light's crazy, man. Red light's crazy.
Yeah, I actually we changed the bulbs. So what Waitus was telling me is there's two different kinds of red light. Red light is like for circadian rhythm, and then the other red light is for actual rejuvenation, right? So we're doing the circadian rhythm route, where after the sun goes down, we turn red lights on in our bedroom, and we typically only use the lights in our bathroom because they illuminate the whole room. Oh, nice. So we put red lights in the restroom, and I feel a significant difference, man. When I just I'm under red light.
Yeah.
Before I go to bed, rather than, the blue light or looking at screens and stuff.
Yeah.
I sleep way better.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Do you use red light at all at home?
I do it at my office.
At your office. Okay.
Normally, if I have a break in my schedule, I'll go in and like do the red light, and afterwards, I'm like, that was a big mistake. So I just want to lay here for the rest of the time. But
yeah.
I actually had like the other day, I actually passed out. And a guy walked in, like my next appointment. I was like, I was sure that I hadn't fallen asleep, and I jumped up and I was almost falling over. It's like, were you sleeping? No.
Nah. Yeah, I actually fall asleep when I do the compression on the legs. Yeah. I get like, I wake up stupid, like drooly sleep, dude. Nice. It's so good. It's such a great nap. Yeah, because I mean, awesome. First off, you're sitting there, you can't do anything, right? And then you just that compression just, I don't know, it lulls me to sleep.
Nice.
So
nice.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
It's pretty cool. So tell me about competitions, man. When you were competing at blue belt, right? And is that when the bulk of your competitions were blue belt, purple kind of it?
White and blue, actually. I didn't compete at all at purple.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Well, that's when you kind of started building that career, right?
Yeah. That's a big part of it. Like there's some so conflict of interest. Basically.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
If I went to a match with somebody that I treated, I would just forfeit.
Oh, I see.
What I mean?
Yeah,
just like there's just some stuff like if I treated them for the ankle, that ankle happened to get hurt, they're gonna be like, did you do that on purpose?
Dude, you're a better man than me. I would have jumped on that ankle. That match would have been over in 30 seconds. Right. Oh my gosh, no, that's cool.
So cool. I just kind of prioritize the physical therapy.
Yep.
And I do jujitsu to be better than myself last week rather than be better than anybody else.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's just kind of it didn't fit anymore into my plans. So every once in a while I get a little
itch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, for me, it would have to be like the perfect storm of like.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm ready to go, and there's one in like 2 weeks. So I'm gonna do it. So.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. So tell me about coaching. How did you get involved with? You're coaching at One Love, right?
Yep.
And how did you get involved with coaching?
So I started out with the kids class.
Very typical.
Yeah. He said, I think, didn't want to do Fridays anymore. So,
okay.
Or actually, they might not have even been a Friday class at the time, but I think he just wanted to start one, and he asked me if I'd be interested. And
nice.
I was working at another company at the time, so I had to kind of like finagle my schedule a bit.
Yeah.
So they ended up allowing me to do it, and I at that time, so maybe 6 months in, my training started to suffer a little bit.
Yep.
Because I only have so many days that I can go into a gym.
I get it.
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And so I ended up talking to him. I was like, I don't mind teaching the kids, but I would like to be able to train too. I was actually more like hinting that he should teach another class on Fridays because there was no adult class. And he goes, "You want one? You want a class?" I was like, "Oh yeah, we could do that." So yeah.
Evil genius.
Yeah, right. So I started teaching, and that was one of the key factors, I think, to me progressing to brown belt, because like I'd studied so much more.
Yeah.
So
funny how teaching does that, right?
Yeah. It just skyrocketed my technique and just my thought processes.
Yep.
And so made me teach class in a really weird way, but
I always tell people so very similar to you. Okay. At the time that I started helping with the kids program, I was doing 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Josh Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah.
I was his lovely assistant 1 day a week.
Nice.
Because periodically he had to not be there that day, so I would cover for him, right? So I would help, and then I'd cover. And then Josh got an opportunity to go teach at another place. It was a really good opportunity for him. So he went, and Paul's like, "Hey, you want to teach the class?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "No, you want to teach the kids program?" I'm like, "What? Like 5 days a week? Are you crazy?" Me? So
what were you at?
I was just a blue belt.
Oh, okay.
I was just a blue belt. But I took on the responsibility, and I took it very seriously, and I loved it. I loved it. It was like, you know how when you when you go to a big competition and you train really hard for it, and maybe it goes your way, maybe it doesn't, but you just come back no matter what, and there's this like almost a depression. You're almost depressed.
Yep,
you know,
yep.
it's over.
Yep.
Like that process is over, and you're like, man, you don't even feel like training. Maybe you take a week off, maybe take a month off, and then you come back and the juices start flowing again, right?
Yep.
That never happened. I would show up on Monday to teach the kids, and they would just like fill me with energy.
That's awesome.
It was so cool, man. Like it was the biggest reason I stuck with jiu-jitsu.
Oh, that's crazy.
Teaching
That's
the
awesome.
kids was the biggest reason. I would go in there and they're like, "Oh, Coach Alex, you did so good." And, you know, and like I lost like really badly. But no matter what, they were really proud, you know.
That's awesome.
Their coach competes, right?
Yeah.
And then that got they wanted to compete as well. And that, you know, I just watched these kids develop, man. And like I'm seeing a kid that I coached, 8 years ago is at the adult purple belt level. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
crazy.
That is so awesome. And so at one point I had switched day jobs, and my new boss was just not cooperating with the schedule. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, it's his business. I get it. But I had to go to Paul and say, hey, I can't teach the kids, man. I'm sorry. And Paul's like, can you teach the morning class? I'm like, yeah. So then I started teaching the morning class 4 days a week because we had no-gi on Wednesday and someone else taught it. So I was the morning coach, and I was a purple belt at the time. So I got my purple belt, brown belt. And again, man, there is just something about the pressure you have to teach people that forces you to study. You can't wing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you go in there and wing it, everybody knows it, and it stinks, right?
Yep, I've done it.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, it's a lesson learned, but you learn it quick, right?
Absolutely.
So it forced me to study. I remember the first training video that I bought myself was it was a Kimura trap system.
Oh, okay.
And I studied the living heck out of that thing. And I took, pages and pages of notes, and then I condensed the notes into index cards, and then the index cards into memory. And then, and I took it super, and it was the most fun. We did Kimuras for a month. I don't know how people's shoulders held up, but we did Kimuras for a month, and I had so much fun. But then that taught me, like, if you can build a training program that's, and teach it systematically, you can teach it to anybody.
Yeah.
So you can have an advanced or mixed levels class and have white belts in it and have them not get lost as long as they show up, right? Consistency is key. But that really taught me to build the program in that way, in such a way that anyone can participate. So when someone asks me, like, brand new white belt, hey, you think I can come into the mixed levels? Yeah, man, get in there. And I'll tell them, like, hey, the best day to start is this, because we're starting the new series. And that's kind of how I run it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to do something like that with 1 day a week.
1 day a week. So do you kind of recap what Issa was teaching, or do you do your own thing?
No, my class is way different from his.
Okay.
It's way different, but I think it's a good combination. So typically when I start teaching class, people are looking at me confused, like, well, what is this guy talking about? And then by the end, so my style is like, I'm actually trying to stimulate conversation.
Yeah.
So like, I love it when it's really loud, everybody's talking about, and they're moving from actually doing what I showed to like, what if I go here? What if I go here?
Yeah.
What if I go there? Because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to get them to think more about how to transition positions and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't typically really show a lot of moves. I'm not like doing like step-by-step moves. I'm actually trying to teach like more concepts of jiu-jitsu.
I love it. Yeah.
So
yeah, because I mean, if you understand a concept, you've got hundreds of moves.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
So that's really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I, Tojo and I had a conversation about that. Like, why I insist on calling the academy an academy, because of that. That's the concept. You go to an academy to expand the concepts or the things that you're learning. You want to build this community that expands on that, right? That asks questions, that challenges the norm and stuff like that, and you build something beautiful out of it. So that's really cool that you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I think that's what's actually kind of great about Arizona Jiu-Jitsu, is that you have that community that expands each other out. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. It's crazy that you can go pop into a rival gym and everybody's like, yeah, this is great. And it's it's so good for the knowledge that we all get, because it's not like the old ways of, I'm gonna keep my knowledge
Yeah,
here.
we'll keep it here. Yeah. How dare you go train there?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
I think that cross training is critical for individual development. Maybe it's probably not great for the academies, because I think people lose students, right? When somebody goes and they realize, oh, my needs are changing, I'm going to go over here and train with these guys. But for an individual to cross train, I think it's really good. I think, like, if you and I were to compete against each other and you just worked me with something, right? I would be like, I've got to get him in the academy and I've got to know what he did. You know what I mean? I want to train with you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing, and I'm sure you've done this, where you come off the competition mat, maybe you murdered the guy, and he's like, that was awesome. What did you do? And you'll tell him in detail exactly what you did, right? Because why not?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I think Arizona is like that.
Yeah.
I think that there's just, you even look at like Issa and Jose Munoz and all those guys that train together. Like Jose Munoz owns a gym, I don't know if he owns it, but like
12th Street.
He runs a gym.
Yeah.
Like 3 miles from Issa.
That's
you
crazy.
Know what I mean? But they cross train just because it's good for the community. You know?
It absolutely is, and it kind of shows your students, like, we're bigger than these four walls.
Yeah,
it's a bigger deal than these four walls,
absolutely.
man. And what really drove that home for me is when we had a fundraiser for it was one of the local black belts.
John Wagner.
And he intimidates me, by the way.
Yeah, he's a tough guy.
Yeah,
he's a great guy, though.
Yeah, he is a great guy. But the whole community, every school, I mean, we're talking like schools that don't typically set foot in other academies, showed up to show support.
Yep.
And it was a full day of, fundraising and seminars and people showing stuff. And man, there was just so much good stuff exchanged. And Tiffany and I talked about this. Like, in the jiu-jitsu community, when something bad happens, we rally.
Oh yeah.
Everybody rallies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no schools. It's like we're just a community now.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like questions.
Right.
Like, it was just like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yep, absolutely.
It's like,
yeah,
it's crazy. It's awesome.
And people that seemed almost unapproachable were like, hey, anytime this stuff happens, you call and we'll be here.
Right. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That was actually, like, I remember I went home and actually posted a thing on Facebook. I was like, wow, that was probably the best jiu-jitsu day I ever experienced.
Yep.
Just because there's so many people there. So many awesome techniques being shown. And it was like 12 different teams.
12,
like that.
At least.
So crazy, including like self-defense jiu-jitsu, like the very specific self-defense jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Like,
they were there. They showed.
Yeah, it was awesome. Crazy, crazy.
Yeah, and Gustavo doing his instruction. Like, I love when he does the he'll show you something on the screen.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
A move on the screen, like in real time.
Right.
Yep. In a live match, and then he'll kind of break it down and show you the move. And he did that. At that seminar. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think he was bummed that he only had like 20 minutes or something like that.
Probably.
But that was pretty cool, man. Yeah.
Actually, the first time I ever saw him do that was a video of Issa.
Oh, really?
And I was like, who's this Issa guy?
Yeah. Well, if you haven't met him, guys, if you haven't met Issa, you should introduce yourself. You'll get to know him quick.
Right.
Trust me. Yeah. I remember that day was really important to me. There's been a few, man. There's been a few where people, like, I mean, they don't even know each other, and they just come out and support. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you about how you're working. Like, you've got a full-time job, your own business, and you're still managing to spend time training and teaching. How early do you start your day? Like, you know what I mean? Where do you fit it all in?
I was actually just talking about this earlier.
Oh, yeah?
But I don't even know sometimes.
Yeah, and so, you have a relationship. You have a girlfriend, right?
Yes.
So that's that takes work.
She's very understanding. So and I typically save Saturday and Sunday for her.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well,
so
thank you for coming here.
No, that's as long as I kind of plan it out a little bit, and we spent most of the day today together. So
cool.
You know, but I do work Saturdays sometimes too. It's just I kind of fill where I need. But the nice thing is I also make my own schedule. So
yeah, that's great.
Like right now
that doesn't suck.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So I like right now I'm blocking out Wednesday mornings and trying to get in to train on Wednesday mornings.
Nice.
Yeah, I typically, so Mondays I'm doing like 7 to, I get home around 9 at night.
Wow.
So yeah, because that's the day that I've been traditionally going out to One Love. So
yeah,
and that Friday is pretty much the same way. But you know, it keeps me sane actually.
It's cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
Right.
The nice thing about my job though is because I have like 200 square feet of mat space in my office. So like if I don't get to train in a week, I can work out a situation where I train now. So I roll with people in my office anyways, because so if I'm rehabbing somebody to go back to jiu-jitsu, I can't just go, hey, go back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I need to go, hey, let's check out your movement. Yeah, let's throw gis on. Let's move a little bit. I typically kind of go, okay, I'm always keyed up to stop.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you tell me to stop, we're going to stop in that position. I'm going to look at the position and we're going to create an exercise for you.
Oh, beautiful.
Based on that position.
Yeah.
So, so I get a chance to roll a lot of times with some pretty high level people too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. And from all, like the same thing, it's from all over the place. I've had, I think the last time I counted it was like 30 different gyms that I've seen people from. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome, man.
So yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what Wada said in the last podcast. Like I was asking him like how he finds time to train for himself. He's like, I'm training all day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to go back to that time when, you know, you were having that conversation with Gustavo and he was like basically led you on this path. Was physical therapy ever on the radar, or were you kind of, it wasn't? I'm curious about that. Like, how did you say like, yeah, I'm going to be a physical therapist? Because you could have said, yeah, I'm going to be a stuntman. You know what I mean?
So I really started a deep thought process of like, what would jiu-jitsu benefit from?
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the time, if I searched jiu-jitsu and physical therapy, I remember the one main thing, and it still pops up like top 10 things, is my doctor told me to stop doing jiu-jitsu.
That's a smart doctor.
Yeah. So that's what the advice was online.
Yeah.
It was like,
stop doing
just
jiu-jitsu.
don't do it. You know what I mean? And I 100% disagree. I think anybody can do jiu-jitsu.
I agree.
I think you could have had a shoulder replacement. You just have to modify it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you see guys out there that like are amputees or, you know, and they're finding
a way
and they're awesome at it. You know what I mean? So I think that's the worst advice somebody could give, you know, but
I agree.
So that's what that's what I was looking at. And then now there are so many of them. Yeah. So many physical therapists out there that I think there's been kind of like a realization of that movement expert type of thing is if you want to be a real movement expert, you need to also be a jiu-jitsu black belt.
It's true, man. It's true. You know, I can identify like points of pain. There's one that I'm going through right now that I can't really put my finger on. It's like, it's the weirdest one ever, but there are points like in my knees where, I'll sit a certain way or I'll turn a certain way. And I'm like, okay, that has got to be, you know, whatever ligament is kind of, you know, kind of being tricky. And I'll bring it back to, Vin, my personal trainer. And I'll be like, hey, this is what I felt the other day. And I'll be like, he'll be like, try to simulate the move just like you would in your stop position. Yeah, and then we're like, okay, we're going to build, our leg program around this. Yeah. And man, I'm telling you, even, you know, 3 years post-surgery and I'm still rehabbing my knee.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
So even as a physical therapist, I'm actually now more mobile than I ever have been.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I still have, from my first surgery, which was 10 years ago, I still have some restrictions that like I have to work around. But I was doing something like probably a week ago, and I felt this huge pop in my knee, and I was like, oh, it was good. No, it was actually a good one. I was like, that was like a pressure that's been there since my surgery. Because I actually had really bad physical therapy for my
Did you?
for my first surgery. So
Yeah. What was your surgery? What was it for?
I've had both ACLs replaced.
Wow. Cadavers?
So, the left one's a cadaver, right one's my patellar tendon. So
which is the most common one now? Are they still using cadaver or the patellar?
So mostly cadaver. So there's like, this is everything in the medical field. There's a lot of mixed information out there. But the cadaver's been a little more effective. So, in general, so, they had some old information that said that they fail, but it's actually starting to look like they're not failing any more than the other ones.
Okay.
So, but my problem one was actually the patellar tendon one.
Yeah.
The one that I had the cadaver in is amazing. I also rehabbed myself. So.
Did you really? Oh, good for you, man. Kind of helps you in the business, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Are you a good patient, or are you just like, it's fine?
No, I'm actually pretty I'm pretty. I'm still treating myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that's how I discover most of what I do, is because I'm like, this doesn't feel too good. I'm gonna figure out a way to help people with this. You know.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So like even recently, I've just really delved into rib injuries.
Dude, how do you fix that?
It's a little complicated, but like actually going back to one of your other podcasts is a lot of breath work actually helps out with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typically so I work on a lot of mobility for thoracic spine, and then some breath work. Cause, same thing, you know, I talked about, you know, you wake up in the morning, you're stiff and sore, you move your hips back and forth and it loosens up. Taking a breath in is going to help expand the ribs out.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you kind of work on a mobility from that aspect, then it can help out a lot. So
And
red light.
Red light.
I actually, that's the original thing. I was using red light a lot for ribs. Yeah. And that's all I was using it for at a certain amount of time. And then whatever I wanted to use it for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty effective for the ribs.
How long do you expose people to red light? And I mean, at what point is it like a diminishing returns kind of thing? Like, I mean, can you be like in front of a red light all day and it just rejuvenates you all day?
So I don't know any specific science on that, to be honest with you. 10 minutes is typically what I've seen as far as being effective.
Gotcha.
So I just normally have people do 10 minutes. And
that's cool.
I get a really good effect out of it.
Do you?
Yeah, again, it's wild.
Yeah, I got to get Amy to come around on that red light thing. I want one so bad.
Yeah. No, you can actually get a little Huga. Yeah, they actually have a little $27 one that you can screw into a little light bulb.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what we started out with. I was like, my girlfriend brought it home, and I was like, "What is this?
Yeah.
What is this garbage?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh no, it helps you. Like you shine it on you." I'm like, "Come on."
Well,
and then I started reading research, and I was like, "Oh wow, this actually really works."
Yeah. Well, I was actually thinking about putting one putting one in the shower.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're in the shower about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And just have red light on you while you're in the shower.
I think that's a great idea.
Right? Dude, anything to stay on the mat. I'm almost 50 and I gotta stay on the mats.
Yeah.
I was training with a kid, college wrestler, maybe 22 years old, and man, it was like everything I had, every dirty trick that I had, I pulled it, and I stopped, and I'm like, gosh, I'm getting old, man.
Right,
like I can't lose any more steps and stay alive with this kid. You know what I mean? So whatever I've got to do, that's what I'm going to do.
I'm not that far behind you. So,
How old are you?
43.
Oh, that's yeah. I remember 43, man. 42 actually. I was sitting on the mat. I was with it was Aaron Wilson, Nava, a couple other guys. It was an open mat, and I'm sitting there going, "Yep, I lost a step today." You know what I mean? I felt it.
Right.
I felt it, man. And then because I mean, I'd only been doing jiu-jitsu a couple of years, but man, it sucks. Getting old sucks, man. But yeah,
you're doing it the right way, though.
I hope so.
You know what I mean? Like people always like, well, if I do jiu-jitsu, then I'm gonna be like I can't move when I'm 60, and you're like, well, what if you stop moving now?
That's right.
Like what's going to happen is you're going to actually not move even more.
Yeah.
So that's people. When I first moved into the house I'm in, they're like, don't get a house with stairs. 10 years, you're not going to be able to go up and down stairs.
I bet I am.
Like, yeah, if I stop going up and down stairs, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be able to go up and down stairs. So.
Yeah. And, I say this almost every podcast, man. It exercise is not optional.
Yeah.
It's not optional.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And recovery. I mean, I grew up in the military, just, and it was like, grind it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ignore pain. We got a job to do. You know what I mean? And I'm paying the price today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are ways to kind of, I don't want to say turn the clock back, but there's ways to help you, stay in the game. And 90% of it revolves around mobility and recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually would agree with you that you can turn the clock back.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. I've turned the clock back on myself.
Yeah.
There's some things, yes, you're dealing with it because of your age, but it's like it's so minute that you can keep moving. Yeah. But a lot of people use it as an excuse to not move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the weird part, man. That's the weird part. Like, I don't see I mean, Western medicine is awesome. Okay? It's awesome. We need pills, right? But it's not the answer to everything.
It shouldn't be the first line of defense.
Right.
It should be like, man, we just don't have anything left for you. Here's a pill.
Yeah.
Or here's a temporary thing to help you move better.
Yeah.
And then you start going to see somebody that helps you.
Yeah.
Everybody should have somebody in their corner, right? Or a team even in their corner, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing is, too much stuff out there going, I'm the answer, whereas you have an answer, right?
Yeah.
So you have Vin to help you, and it works for you.
Yep.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think like we said earlier, man, I don't think people should see a physical therapist only when they get injured. I think when you're not injured, I think that's just as important, right?
I agree.
Because like Wade said, your body is molding. Your body's molding you into this creature that sits at a desk all day. Your body's molding you into this creature that drives a car all day. And you have to figure out or go to an expert and say, hey, why don't we just start moving your back in a different way, right? To fire those muscles and make you feel better and not be so stiff when you wake up in the morning because you're sitting in a different position, right? If you drive a truck all day and then you're laying flat all night, it's going to affect you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's, from my perspective, even like I have people that come and see me like once a month and they have personal trainers, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say, hey, this is what I'm seeing right now. Have your personal trainer work on you with this stuff.
Perfect.
Here's a little bit of a different mindset to take to them. Like, so I'll show them a couple things and be like, hey, you should be working on it, because we don't all know everything. Like there's a lot of stuff that I don't know that like Vin knows and Wadis knows. And if I have the ego to be like, oh, you don't need that because I don't know how to do it, right? Then other people, like, you're gonna miss out a lot. So you really caught my attention when you said, you heard what Wadis was saying, and you were like, I'm gonna look into that, and you did. You know what I mean? You had that humility to say, oh, I don't know anything about that. Let's read about that, right? It probably took you down a rabbit hole that you'd never been down before. Absolutely. But there are a lot of people that'd be like, forget that stuff. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you hear it when people. So I've watched people do this. They say, I was Googling this, and then their therapist says, don't listen to Dr. Google. And I'm like, my mentality towards that is I want to hear it. Yeah. Because for one, I might learn something that I never heard before. Yep. And it doesn't matter that it's coming from my patient who's coming to see me. Yeah. Like, I don't have to be like, I'm the expert. That's so I want to hear it, because also it's going to give me the opportunity, if it's wrong, to explain why it's wrong. Yeah. And again, I want to learn. So like if it's something that is valid, then I have a learning opportunity, so it doesn't matter where it came from.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I mean, it doesn't matter what your field of expertise is. If your ego is so great that you feel like you can't learn anything, probably not the person you want to go see.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I was like, John Danaher probably doesn't know everything about jiu-jitsu. A lot of people might hate me for saying that, but
how dare you, sir?
But there's just no way to know everything about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
There's no way to know everything about strength and conditioning. There's no way to know everything about physical therapy.
Yeah.
And if you don't realize that, then again, you're like what you said is you're not with the right person.
100%. Yeah. You want something funny about back when I was a service technician, right? When I had no idea what I was doing. I have a long, funny story about how I got into that industry. But anyway, I was, I was going out and the company that I worked for was actually had a really good training program. So they walked me through like the very basics of, it was building automation. So it's a very basics to like networking and, network communication, stuff like that. So it was like, and everything in between. So it was like a progression. And as I'm going through these classes, I'm also like, we would go out for like a week of training, come back to, or wherever we were, out of, and we'd go do our job. So you're kind of getting the training on the job. You're also getting some schooling. It's really cool. And I'm noticing like we have all these different ways to control a building. And, oh, by the way, there's like Gen 2 and Gen 1 and Gen 0 and then a different thing. And then like, antiquated equipment. I'm like, where the hell do you start? Right? Where the hell do you start? Like all you can do is work on what's in front of you. Right? And then when you see something new, you research that. Right? You spend some time researching it. It's got to be the same thing in your industry, right? You see something new, you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll look into this. And maybe that's a little piece of the puzzle that I can help the next person with.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, luckily for me, it's a little different because everything's very obvious where you start.
Right.
You start by listening to the person.
Yeah.
You don't have somebody to tell you what's going on. But like most of the time, people subconsciously kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they like if I just like listen to what you're saying about what's going on, then it will lead me down a path.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then you start messing with it a little bit. Okay, does this work for you? Does this work for you? Let's test it out. See how it worked. And so
and it's pretty wild how the reason I'm so interested in what you do is because I was watching this it was like a Discovery Channel type of thing, and they were talking about prosthetics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild. And, when you think about your knee, you just think about the knee goes back and forth.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And I didn't realize this, but the knee moves in so many different directions that it's really hard to find the perfect prosthetic, right? I mean, and they're getting better and better and better, but I can imagine, like, all the little chunks and pieces that make up a knee that people are coming to you like, hey man, it hurts.
Right.
Right. How do you find, obviously by moving the knee around, right?
Yeah.
And do you find like, let's just say nothing's torn, but it's really sprained.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go like a mobility? Do you go by strength? How do you kind of fix what's wrong when you have somebody just like it hurts, but nothing's torn?
So that's why it's like a little bit of a time process.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a conversation I have a lot with people is, a lot of times people are expecting you to, when you go in and see somebody like me, they're expecting you to go, okay, this is what's wrong. This is how we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how it should even work.
Yeah.
Especially when you're looking at stuff like spine pain, something that's like so intricate and there's so many idiosyncrasies to it that one person showing up one way could be completely different from somebody else that shows up the exact same way.
Yeah.
So what it should look like is I have a bunch of puzzle pieces and I'm starting to take the puzzle pieces. Does it fit here? Does it fit here? Does it fit here?
Yeah.
And I start discovering, I have two puzzles. So I got to throw this piece over here for later on.
Yeah.
So because a lot of times it's not just one thing that's wrong. So,
okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
So then I had one of my bosses at one point was like, why are you working on stability of the spine with that person? They have a mobility issue. And I was like, no, they have a mobility and a stability issue.
Yeah.
I was like, just because that part's not moving, doesn't mean that the other part, is not, is stable. Right. So So it's, there's normally like, there's one piece that's really obvious, and then there's this piece that's out here that's completely opposite, and then there's this piece out here that's more like the first piece, and something else completely going on over here. So I'm always just trying to like adapt to what is presenting at the time.
Gotcha.
So, and that can show up in weird ways, right? So like somebody could be coming to see me for like a hip problem, and they're like, I kind of noticed that my toe's not moving, so I'll work on the toe. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be like, that's not what you're here for. Like,
right. It's not what the chart says, sir.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We'll set up another 6 to 8 weeks for that after we're done with this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, okay, that could contribute to this. Let's see if we can get it moving a little bit better, and then see how you feel. Yeah. You actually find a lot of times that there's some very weird connections going on.
Yeah.
In the body,
well, my low back pain went away when I started paying attention to my hamstrings.
Yeah. That one's very common.
Very common,
very
right?
Common. Yeah.
So my hamstrings were so tight that back in the day, Jenny at OS, she tried to cup them. Couldn't get a cup on there. Couldn't get a cup to stay. They were so freaking tight. She's like, crazy. I don't know how you haven't popped a hamstring. I was like, I don't know either, man. They were so tight. But I started rolling them out. I've been paying a lot of attention to them. Nice. And my lower back pain has magically gone away.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that started with her, right?
Yeah.
She showed me, how to do it. So,
yeah. There's your hamstring's going and attached to the top of your pelvis. So like it can rotate you back a little bit. So.
It was terrible. Yeah. It was terrible. And I always thought, well, maybe I heard it back in the Navy days, and now I'm just paying for it. No, it was just tight hamstrings.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Seemed to fix the problem.
Yeah,
so I'll take it. I'll take it, man. But listen, so tell us how we can find you, how we can get a hold of you. Are you on social media? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. So my main jiu-jitsu social media is control_physical_therapy.
Okay.
I do have a Facebook, but I don't do a lot on it. And then phone number is 480-474-4921. And I'm on www.controlphysicaltherapy.com.
Perfect, man. Perfect. And you're in Scottsdale.
I am.
Pretty central location, so there's no excuse. Get out there and see Greg. Before I let you go, everybody's got to do a lightning round of questions.
All right.
So some of these may not pertain to someone of your age.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. Go for it.
All right. Here we go. All right. Name a game show you think you could actually win.
Wow. None of them.
None of them, really? Normally people say like Price is Right. Or
see how fast my brain works.
Stick to fixing limbs there, doctor. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Tacos.
Tacos, nice.
Any kind of taco.
What's the longest time you've gone without brushing your teeth?
Adult life, 36 hours.
Nice. All right.
Could have been longer as a kid, but I just don't remember.
Yeah, adult life. I should specify adult life. Yeah. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, man.
Gun to your head. You got to do it.
I've only done one. It was the Danny Boy. Oh, Danny Boy. The Irish.
Really? Yeah. Do you know the words?
No. No, I had a gun to my head, and somebody was like, you have to sing a song right
I
now.
love it.
It was the only time I ever did it.
That's cool. All right, what's a dumb song you secretly like? Like a stupid song you would never play it out loud?
All of them.
All of them?
Drop Dead Fred song.
What's
a model. You know what I mean?
That's actually pretty catchy. I like that one.
I'm a terrible singer.
That should be your go-to karaoke song. All right. Do you like to sleep in or take a nap?
Both.
Both? Yeah, same here. Do you use a public restroom or hold it?
Oh, I would. If I have a choice, I hold it.
You hold it?
Sometimes it's just you got to do what you got to do.
I hear it. All right. Would you rather go forward in time or back in time?
Back in time.
Rolling Stones or Elvis?
Rolling Stones.
PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Nice. All right, man. Well, listen, if you guys are looking for someone to help you get back on the mat or keep you on the mat, even if you are feeling well, please go see Greg at Control Physical Therapy in Scottsdale, Arizona. And Greg, thank you for taking the time, brother.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep it up, man. It's awesome.
Thank you.